A major power outage leads to thousands of stranded passengers and hundreds of canceled flights in San Diego and across the country.
With this Trump wants to put the wall here, what the hell are you going to do with no Mexicans?
1, 2, 3, register people to vote now.
Make it or break it. The controversial campaign rhetoric driving voters to the polls for the first time ever. And just when you thought it was safe to go in the water, the cinematic cues that could harm shark conservation efforts. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Travel plans thwarted for thousands of passengers today from San Diego and around the world. Delta officials are working to get back on track after a power outage. They canceled more than 650 flights and more than 2,400 were delayed. On a typical Monday, Delta operates 6,000 flights. And at Lindbergh Field, Delta travelers trying to leave San Diego tell us they're not sure when they'll make it home.
We got a misconnected flight this morning and just got it again. So we are delayed 5 hours.
It's moving pretty rapidly. Things are picking up. We have assistance from Delta coming out to you, asking you to check for your tickets from the scanners and also call the 800 number that they gave me right here to call. So that helps out big time.
Delta is offering travelers refunds and waiving rescheduling fees. The deadline to reschedule is August 12th. A huge wildfire at the edge of the California desert is sending smoke all the way to Las Vegas. Officials are calling this one the Pilot Fire. It started Sunday afternoon on the north side of the San Bernardino Mountains. It's burned 7 square miles so far. San Diego County officials are cheering the return of a huge helicopter crane that'll help with aerial firefighting over the next 3 months. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The Erickson Sky Crane is appropriately named Goliath. It towers over people as it sits in its temporary home at El Cajon's Gillespie Field. Local officials hope that size helps the craft and its crew stamp out wildfires before those fires get too large. Captain Guy Keelman says the helicopter can carry 5 times as much water as a normal chopper.
The air crane is surprisingly agile. It's very maneuverable, and it works very well in a fire environment, and we're able to maneuver quickly and accurately for the firefighters on the ground.
And it does pack a punch. The helicopter picks up water with these giant tubes and then takes it to a fire zone and drops it on or near a fire. Fighting wildfires from the air is a key part of local strategy to hit small fires with overwhelming force. This is the 7th year the large chopper has been part of the county's firefighting fleet. SDG&E is paying nearly $2 million to keep the craft here for 3 months. County Supervisor Ron Roberts says the utility and the county are sharing initial flight costs.
I look at this and it's kind of like my auto insurance. I'm happy I have it, but I hope I don't have to use it, okay? And I think we all have that feeling, but there's a comfort in knowing you've got it.
Local officials say climate change, drought, and a lot of dead trees in the backcountry are a recipe for a volatile fire season this year. That means the Goliath could get a lot of work. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump rolled out a new tax plan in Detroit today. He says he wants to cut the corporate tax rate by more than half, from 35% to 15%. And he says he wants to cut the number of income tax brackets with a top rate of 33%.
Our current tax code is so burdensome and so complex that we waste 9 billion hours a year in tax code compliance. My plan will reduce the current number of brackets from 7 to 3 and dramatically streamline the process.
Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton says Trump's plan is merely an attempt to repackage trickle-down economics.
Now, you know that old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Trickle-down economics does not help our economy grow. It does not help the vast majority of Americans, but it does really well for people already at the top.
PBS NewsHour will have more on Trump's economic speech coming up at 7 tonight. Many Hispanics often can't vote, aren't registered to vote, or choose not to vote at all. Enter Donald Trump, and the question could make or break the election in the key states. Has the Republican nominee jolted awake the 27 million eligible Hispanic voters? Associated Press reporter Peter Banda has more in a continuing series called Divided America.
It's not a party. It's not a revival meeting. It's a pep rally on a 108-degree day in Las Vegas. Members of the Culinary Workers Union prepare to go door to door to round up Latino voters ahead of a congressional primary. They hope those same voters will turn out for the presidential election in November.
You got the drug guys, you got rapists, you've got killers.
You can't have this discussion without talking about what Donald Trump has said and done, and the way that that has really, pissed people off.
Upset a so-called sleeping giant of millions of Latino voters nationwide who historically vote in low numbers. But they can swing an election when they show up at the polls. To win, experts say a presidential candidate needs at least a third of the Latino vote.
Mr. Trump right now has about 23% favorability among Latinos. Unless he pivots very hard, he has a good chance of losing the election.
The Culinary Workers Union represents hotel workers who are seeking a contract at Trump's Las Vegas property. Not only are they rounding up voters, they're creating new ones by helping longtime residents become citizens. People like Shamora Duenas, who's lived here 20 years.
Trump has in his mind that even if you're a resident in this country, he could deport you. He can't deport a citizen.
1, 2, 3, register people to vote now.
Buenas tardes. ¿Ya está registrado para votar?
Fabiola Vihar, legally here under President Obama's DREAM Act, helps people gain the right to vote that she doesn't have.
Gracias. To register, a lot of times it's hard because they're either scared or they're like, oh, I don't have time. But it's so easy. It takes a minute to register.
There are an estimated 55 million Latinos in the United States. Of those, around 27 million are eligible to vote, but only about half actually do so. Los Angeles-born John Herrera has gone 5 presidential elections without ever registering to vote. He just signed up.
I haven't really voted in the past except now because of Trump. Hating on Hispanics, being more racist than anything else.
I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words.
With this Trump wanting to put the wall here, what the hell are you going to do with no Mexicans? There's enough of us right now in this state we can come out there and we can actually make a difference.
How much has Trump upset Latinos? One can buy a Trump piñata at Latino party stores. Despite that dislike, their vote may still be up for grabs.
Most people don't realize that 51% of the Latino voters identify as independents. So they think independently about the issues and they go with the candidate that they feel are going to be key on those issues.
An election that for Latinos and other Americans may be more about the economy, jobs, and national security than immigration or the candidate. Peter Banda, Associated Press, Las Vegas.
A California lawmaker wants Congress to start funding Zika research. State Senator Richard Pan says federal funding is needed to develop a vaccine for the virus, which has been linked to birth defects. He says the disease is a public health emergency.
We have blood banks here declaring blood shortages because they're concerned about having to turn away donors or donors not coming in because of Zika. We have the CDC for the first time actually issuing a travel warning to part of the United States because of Zika.
Last week, health officials announced that 2 Californian babies were born with microcephala which is linked to the Zika virus. A few days ago, Medicare officials rolled out a star rating program that dubbed hospitals better or worse based on 64 measures. The ratings make some hospitals look great, but they also show others need to work on some issues to improve their outcomes for their patients. KPBS media partner iNews Source looked into the ratings. Reporter Cheryl Clark joins me to explain. So Cheryl, what exactly does a low star rating mean?
Well, a low star rating could mean a hospital's patients are more likely to die than in a higher scoring hospital. For example, mortality rates within 30 days of discharge make up 22% of the ratings equation.
And what are some of the other things the star ratings consider?
Well, there's safety issues like infections that occur while patients are in the hospital. Also, avoidable readmission rates. And that could indicate a hospital discharged patients before they were ready. Also, how fast emergency room patients got care they needed.
So overall, how did San Diego hospitals do?
Well, here's a sampling of the ratings. We had some high scorers and some low scorers. Scripps Green and Scripps Memorial earned 5 stars, the highest rating. The lowest scoring hospital was Tri-City, which earned just 2 stars.
Now, some hospitals and members of Congress did not want the ratings. Why is that?
Well, they wanted to delay it. It's very controversial. The hospital industry thinks that many hospitals will be punished unfairly and maybe even shamed because of factors beyond their control. For example, socioeconomic factors in low-income communities may make it tougher for patients to fill needed prescriptions, and that puts them back in the hospital. But Medicare believes the public has a right to know which hospitals need to improve.
And you'll have all the rating information online at inewssource.org. Cheryl Clark, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Researchers say middle school is a crucial time for closing the gender gap in engineering. That's when girls often begin to lose interest in math and science. KPBS reporter Megan Burks recently visited a summer camp aimed at keeping girls on track.
It's the final day of Q Camp at Qualcomm's Think-A-Bit lab in Sorrento Valley, and 30 girls are putting the finishing touches on dancing marionettes.
This one's not working right. Yeah.
The marionettes are linked to smartphones via Bluetooth. The girls coded apps that control the marionettes using buttons or the phone's motion sensor.
We are looking at statements that are if statements, but they're basically telling what the Arduino to do. At some points, it's saying if the left arm moves at least 23 degrees, it's telling the right arm to move that way too.
Over the past 3 summers, these girls have been attending the engineering camp as part of an experiment to see what keeps girls in the engineering pipeline. Instructor Sara Nadiri says the key is showing that engineering is just another medium for creativity.
It's not some daunting, scary, I'm going to be in a box like coding or something. It's anything that you want it to be, whether you want to build smartphones or you want to build spaceships, but you can also do interactive art or fashion or toys or, build roller coasters.
12-year-old Neha Roshan and her partner built a celebrity walking the red carpet.
We put a lot into the dress and stuff, and I didn't know that this project would have a lot of creativity and stuff until I started it, and then it was like ideas were everywhere.
Neha says she had always wanted to be a fashion designer, but Q Camp has expanded her definition of designer.
Now I'm thinking of maybe being like an engineer where you get to make fun projects like this, and also maybe like a designer so that you think of the plan and then other people execute it, and then you get to see the final project and it's super fun.
The camp has had 100% retention since beginning in 2014, and organizers hope that means the girls will stay on the engineering path. But challenges remain, among them the gender pay gap. Qualcomm itself recently settled for $19.5 million in a gender discrimination lawsuit. Nadiri's advice to girls, keep persisting until women in engineering is the norm.
We're going to keep on having this problem. Watch us
Yay! Yay!
Megan Burks, KPBS News.
San Diego State's athletic director is leaving. Today, Jim Sturk has officially announced he's the new athletic director of the University of Missouri. Sturk has been with SDSU since 2010. Since then, the football team has been in 6 consecutive bowl games, an SDSU record. Also, the school's basketball team has reached the NCAA tournament 5 times and won the conference tournament twice. Sturk was named the athletic director of 2015. People who already own a home in San Diego may not realize it, but there's a housing crisis underway in the region. KPBS North County Bureau's Allison St. John says the middle class is especially hard squeezed.
Next speaker, please.
Longtime Escondido resident Guy Chandler faced a situation many San Diego families may be all too familiar with. He described it at a recent county supervisors meeting.
Probably the worst day of my life was June 16th, 2015, when my daughter, Janelle, 37 years old, came to me and said, "Dad, sit down. I'm going to tell you something you're not going to like." I said, "What's that, sweetheart?" She said, "We have to move out of San Diego County."
Chandler's daughter told him she was planning to take her young family and move to another state because she couldn't find a house she could afford to raise her kids in San Diego.
Next 2 days, a lot of hand-wringing and crying went on.
Chandler says he now communicates with his grandchildren via FaceTime.
What's my point? My point is droves of young families are leaving the state of California because they can't afford to live here.
The housing situation in San Diego is being called a crisis for both buyers and renters. Stephen Russell heads the San Diego Housing Federation, which works to produce more affordable housing for renters, like this development at 22nd and Commercial, east of downtown.
Since the year 2000, we've seen rents increase by about 32%, while wages have actually decreased by 2% during that same time frame.
Russell says more than half of San Diego renters are paying more than a third of their income in rent. More than 70% of San Diegans are now priced out of the homeownership market for an average-priced house. And yet San Diego's regional planning agency, the San Diego Association of Governments, or SANDAG, says there is the space, we have the capacity to build enough housing to meet our needs. Here's the Director of Land Use and Transportation Planning, Charles Stoll.
Our current forecast shows that the planned housing that is contained within all the general plans for all of our local jurisdictions, all the cities and the unincorporated county, provide enough housing to accommodate the projected need of about 325,000 units between now and the year 2050. So the current general plans show sufficient capacity to meet that.
Well, the forecasts of our regional planners tell us that there should be enough new housing being built in San Diego like this to meet the needs of our children. In practice, the gap between what we need and what is actually being built is getting wider and wider.
According to SANDAG, we need anywhere between 11,000 to 12,000 units annually just to keep pace with population growth.
Matt Adams of San Diego's Building Industry Association says that hasn't happened for 10 years, since 2005, as this chart shows. Last year, the building industry did get permits for over 10,000 units.
And that was the first time we've done it since, way back here. And so I thought it would have gotten more attention, but sadly it didn't.
But Adams admits there's a catch to these improving numbers. Even though more of the permits, the ones in red, are for multifamily, not single-family homes, they are still not affordable.
Out of the 10,000 that were produced last year, you had only 229 single-family homes were produced that could be sold at $500,000 or less. The market that is not being met or serviced is the market of working middle-class families.
Adams calls the housing market an hourglass market, with more houses being built for the people at the top and the bottom of the economic ladder than people in the middle. But Russell says it's more like a goblet with a big bowl and a tiny base. He says in the first 7 years of building out SANDAG's regional housing forecast, just over 20% of the housing needs for low-income earners was built. Under 20% of housing for middle-class families were built, while for the above-average earners, 152% of what was needed got built.
The goblet, is nice because you think of a goblet spilling over with supply. And for the top third, there is a plethora of choices. For folks below the top third, there really are not choices.
Russell says part of the problem is that though the state requires cities to submit plans for where houses can be built, there are very few incentives to actually build them.
It would be helpful if municipalities actually built according to their community plans and actually met the expectations that they put out in their own local housing elements. If they were to do that, then we could in fact meet the demand, the local demand for housing.
Adams agrees, saying there are no penalties and few incentives for cities to follow through on their state-mandated housing plans.
It's a paperwork exercise right now.
Sandag awards between $5 and $8 million every few years to cities that do a particularly good job of building sustainable, affordable houses near transit lines, like this one in Vista. But Stoll says the regional planning agency has no authority to enforce local land use plans that call for higher density.
Each jurisdiction is responsible for pulling their own weight. That's the way it's always been.
Russell thinks as San Diego's housing crisis deepens, Sandag should step up and take more of a leadership role.
We have had some constructive conversations, but I don't think that the magnitude of the housing crisis we're in has really permeated to the minds of all of those board members. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, I think, to get the level of focus and attention and commitment from Sandag that the issue really deserves.
Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Mild, pleasant weather for the start of this work week. Molly Cochran has more on what's ahead.
Well, much of the California coast staying dry and quiet. That does include San Diego to LA and including San Francisco. Notice on our satellite and radar, though, these afternoon thunderstorms just continue to fire up in the Four Corners near Denver, mainly to the east of Phoenix. We are going to be watching a little bit more moisture return to the region, and that's associated with what was Tropical Storm Earl. So some of that wet weather getting into the region, better chance to deal with some of those drenching downpours. Now, that's not going to have an impact on our weather, but if you have any getaway plans coming up, definitely could cause for a few flight delays near Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Denver. Increasing cloud cover coming up tonight for the metro. Overnight low of 66 degrees, really not too far off from average for this time of year. Oceanside at 65, mid 60s, also in Long Beach. Ramona coming in the lower 50s. Higher elevations, just a little bit cooler. Mount Laguna also in the upper 40s. Now, as we make our move into Tuesday, we will have a little bit of a dip in the jet stream. That's going to return in some slightly cooler air to Northern California and into the San Francisco Bay Area. Lower clouds could cause for a few flight delays into early Tuesday morning. And that's also to be said for San Diego. Some of those low clouds will linger early, but some sunshine should be popping back in for the afternoon. Now, as we take a closer look along the coast, temperatures going to be staying in the mid to upper 70s through the middle to later half of this week, and our overnight lows will stay in the 60s each day. Low clouds to start, but don't worry, that sunshine will return into the afternoon hours. Farther inland, it's a little bit warmer. Temperature coming in at 85 Wednesday and Thursday. Then by the upcoming weekend, we'll come in at 87 Friday, upper 80s, flirting with that 90 mark for the start of the weekend. For the mountains, we're at 79 on Tuesday, upper 70s coming up on Wednesday, Thursday into Friday. Plenty of bright sunshine, and our temperatures will be getting into the lower to mid 80s by the end of the week. Overnight lows stay in the upper 40s to lower 50s. For the deserts, our temperature is going to be in the triple digits. Plenty of bright sunshine, though, coming up Tuesday through the later half of the week. 104 ahead on Friday. Then we're feeling a little bit warmer by the start of the weekend. 109. Plenty of bright sunshine with that overnight low in the lower 70s. Molly Cochran, KPBS News.
We all know this music. Some San Diego researchers say it could shape the way we feel about sharks. KPBS science reporter David Wagner joins us from the newsroom to explain. Good evening, David. Can you tell us why scientists wanted to study this topic?
Well, they told me that they think this scary music has really become a cliche when it comes to footage of sharks. And you're right, if there's any sound that defines sharks in our minds, it's probably that theme music from Jaws. The researchers also say that nature documentaries, they also tend to use this kind of spooky music to soundtrack video clips of sharks. And Scripps Institution of Oceanography assistant researcher Andrew Nosal told me he wondered if all of this music could be hurting shark conservation efforts. And And so there you see a clip from an experiment that the Scripps researchers did where they asked different people to watch the same exact footage of sharks but paired with different music. So they had some people watch the clip we're watching right now with this kind of ominous, spooky music, and then a second group watched the same exact clip but paired with this kind of uplifting music. So the results were that people who saw the clip with spooky music rated sharks afterwards as significantly more negative than the people who saw clips featuring that uplifting music.
So why does this matter?
So research has shown that people tend to greatly overestimate how often sharks attack humans. And this study suggests that some of that misperception could be due to a lifetime of seeing sharks paired with this kind of ominous music. Around a quarter of shark species are considered to be under threat of extinction. And scientists say the public is probably less likely to support conservation efforts when they have such a negative opinion of sharks.
Thank you so much. That was great work. Very interesting. KPBS science reporter David Wagner. Thanks for joining us. For more on tonight's stories, you can go to our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.